Broadcasting from an undisclosed location under a farm pond somewhere in the Midwest. Your host is Jim Crowley. This is Slickfish Radio. High energy, lots of fun. That's what we like to do here. Everybody, welcome to Slickfish Radio. Some of you joining us in tonight. Hey, you guys are already clicking on. You guys are awesome. I love our audience. I say that every episode that we have of the show. But you're gonna notice there's some a new background. We've got some new partners that are joining us on the show. We are excited. On top of that, we have BASS Elite Pro Rookie 2022 Rookie of the Year, Jay Przekurat, on with us. I am excited to have him on. One reason is he loves smallmouth, and looking forward to talking to him about that. But I'm glad for all of you that are joining with us tonight. Please feel free, as always, to make sure that if you have comments or if you have questions, we're looking forward to having all of you on. First and foremost, I want to thank some of our partners, and we've got some new ones on here tonight. But Shields, as always, in Springfield, already gearing up for spring. They've got their tackle section, as I always say, is loaded. Their hunting sales are going on right now. If you haven't been to the Shields in Springfield, Illinois, let me tell you, there's nothing. If you go to Shields, there's nothing that you're going to want. Industry professionals working in every single aisle. They're experts in their department. One of my favorite places to go, that huge Ferris wheel, the saltwater tanks, all the informative employees that know exactly what you're going to want and exactly what you're going to need to do any of your outdoor endeavors. Shields is absolutely the best place to go. It's just fun. It's like Christmas for kids and adults. I love going to Shields. Hey, Lure Parts Online is joining us this season. We're going to have discount codes from Lure Parts Online. We're going to show you some new products. One of the things I want to show you is our new Bass Academy line of plastics. We have some brand new Big D's and new colors. Morning Dawn is going to be a great one. You smallmouth guys, you're going to love that. Check out this one, Light Melon Magic. Oh, I'm going to give you a discount code at the end of this show here. You've got to go to Lure Parts Online and check out the new line of Bass Academy plastics. I was proud to be asked to work on that. There are some great shapes, some new things coming later this winter and early spring. Incredible stuff coming from Lure Parts Online. Our friends at Casking, do got to show you, the new tackle boxes are out. The new Hyper Seal tackle boxes are out. Check these out. I do want to show this to you. These are waterproof. They also float. And if you can notice, all the compartments are perforated, so air can flow through there. They also have a little desiccant thing in here. What that means is that dries up the water in there, so it keeps your stuff rust free and it's rust proof. What a great solid new tackle box for all your stuff. That's what I'm going to be using on all my stuff this year, and on my boat is a new Hyper Seal tackle boxes from Casking. We're going to give you a discount code at the end of the show for Casking as well, so you can check out the rods, reels, and everything like that. We have people chiming in already. Donald Haas. Donald, hi, how are you? Good evening. Glad to have you here, and everybody else who is coming in. Also, our friends at Mudhole. We're going to be doing some great rod building later this year, rod building specials, and it's going to be coming. The people who have the best informative videos on the planet for rod building, for custom rod building, is Mudhole. And so we're going to be having a lot of stuff from them, as well as helping you all build some of your rods if you like to do that, like I do. Just some great stuff from Mudhole. We'll be coming with you in that. We'll be telling you more about that in the future. And of course, our friends at Dakota Lithium. Again, what a great company, powering your passion for anything and everything that you want with that 11-year warranty. Nobody beats Dakota Lithium. David, hello. How are you? Good. Thanks for coming in tonight. Glad to have all of you guys coming in tonight. Let's see how many states we can get tonight. I think the last episode we had like 6 or 7 states coming in. So everybody chiming on. If you got questions, you got comments, looking forward to having that. We're going to be having more stuff to tell you at the end of the show after we talk with Jay. So make sure that you stay tuned to the end of the show, because we're going to have those discount codes and we're going to be telling you more. We also have a discount code for Dakota Lithium going forward as well. So any of you who are on on the line about should I go with lithium. We'll talk to Jay a little bit about that too. And I know he powers all his stuff with that, just like I do as well. So we got a lot to talk about, but you didn't come here just to listen to me yak. you came here to see Jay Przekurat. So, Jay, how are you, man? Glad to have you.
I'm good. Thanks for having me, Jim.
Oh, you bet. Last year, this year, past ICAST, actually, not that you knew because you were busy like I was, but running up and down the aisle, I'm like, man, I got to talk to him. And every time I said that, I got pulled away to something else, and I'm sure you did too. So I'm glad that a mutual friend of ours hooked us up so you could be on the show. My friend, you have had a whirlwind last couple years, and I know your dad got you involved in fishing and had a big part of that. Before we get to all the craziness that has been your career already, and there's been a lot of great stuff. Where did you start? Like, do you remember when you first put a fishing rod in your hand and how all this started?
Oh man, if I have to go back to it, I mean it's when I was as early as I can remember. So I mean we're talking, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. Probably about that 10-year-old range is when I first started to remember, actual fishing events that happened. My dad would take me tournament fishing around the house. I think I started tournament fishing with him. Now, these were just small local tournaments,
Sure.
Nothing big. When I was 11, maybe 12 years old, when I was, able enough to stay up in the boat and didn't do anything dumb. So nothing crazy happened on the boat. But I would have to say, I picked up a rod whenever I could, or, as early as I can remember. But the only thing I ever wanted to do was either bank fish, fish with my dad, any chance I get when he wasn't gone fishing a tournament, or, we were home just fun fishing. But yeah, even if it was just off the bank, I grew up next to a local neighborhood pond. I would walk there, every day that I could remember, when I was 10, 11, 12 years old, catching whatever. Actually, like going back, my favorite fish used to be northern pike. I'd love to catch anything that swam and, anything. Like, I just loved them because they were big. And there was this rumor that the pond by our house had like this, 38-inch northern in it. And I was always after it. So it never really mattered what the species was. It was always just like, I wanted to catch the biggest fish that lived in the place I was fishing.
That's really cool because when I started, my dad started me in a boat when I was 3, and I laughed because you said, well, I got to think back that far. Dude, I got to think back a lot farther than you do. I'm just telling you. So, but when I was 3, my dad started me. But one of the fish right after that, I think when I was 5 or I think 6 years old, he took me to Canada for the first time. And the first northern pike I hooked, I'm like you, dude. I don't care what kind of fins they have. I want to catch them.
Yeah.
I want to catch them. But yeah, northern pike are fun. They're, especially when they get really, really big. You get that 38-inch size and up. Those are a lot of fun. And standard bass tackle, do it. And you said your dad. It's really cool because, as I just said, my dad started me too. And your dad's actually had 2 Angler of the Year titles. He's an incredible walleye angler. And one of the things I wanted to ask you is, growing up with that, you were already learning different ways to go about and locate fish. Because I've always said this, especially back in the day, I always felt that walleye anglers were better at locating fish because of what they had to do compared to largemouth bass anglers in most cases. Now electronics has made some of that a little bit more of a level playing field. But I bet you remember way back when there were probably things that your dad was telling you that now you're looking back and go, I used that for largemouth or for smallmouth. Do you remember any of those? Like, going, if he told you to look at something and you went, yeah, I can use that.
Yeah, I mean, I can remember specific events like when I was real young. So everybody knows you can go and fish the bank for bass, right? I mean, we can go and fish docks. We can go and fish, a lay down that you can see with your eyes. I remember the first time he took me off the bank, and I was like, Dad, what are we doing out here? Like, there's no fish out here. What are we doing? That was a specific moment that opened up my eyes to where, fishing for walleyes, you can't just go beat the bank. You can't just go, fish a dock. I mean, you can do, similar things, but at the same time, you're constantly having to locate actual fish and locate actual structure rather than, bass fishing. You can throw a topwater frog. You can do things like that. So I feel like, knowing the walleye side of things from my dad, specifically having to learn electronics at such an early age, not even the forward-facing sonar back in the day. This is, when side imaging first came out and stuff like that when I was, 12, 13, 14 years old. So being able to learn that right away compared to, what I've had to learn now in the last couple of years is kind of crazy, because I feel like it definitely gave me a head start,
Sure.
maybe on someone else that wasn't able to, go offshore and they only, had access to the bank.
It's interesting that you say that, because I think you hit on a really, really good point right there. I think myself included, learning more about electronics now. I learn more every year, and I'm still behind. I'll be honest, I'm still behind the curve. I'm doing more things this year and taking people with me that are going to teach me. You're never too old to learn anything. What gave you a great advantage, and I think you're going to see this, you already see it, but you're going to see it as you go farther, is somebody starting you offshore like that, and you get that confidence and things that, hey, I don't have to be looking at the bank. Here are the things that I'm looking for. And side imaging, is great as forward-facing sonar is. Things like side imaging or 360 or things like that are still, sometimes I think they get swept under the carpet a little bit, because I bet there's still some things when you're looking at side imaging, because I want to get your opinion on this. When you're looking at side imaging or 360 or whatever you use, when you're looking, that is solid stuff that is right there. Where forward-facing sonar, it has to be the perfect condition, and sometimes where that cone angle is going to be just right. I'm guessing you still utilize like side imaging and even 2D on a lot of things before you get into the side imaging. Is that one of the ways that you start looking for things?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I'm not the guy to just go out there and be like, oh, you need live scope, you need this and that. Start with step number 1, 2D sonar,
Perfect,
some mapping, and some side imaging. There's nothing better than being able to see the bottom, 80 to 100 feet out on each side of your boat, and kind of knowing, you can't really do that with live scope. You can't, idle for 30 minutes. It would take you forever, to go on the trolling motor. You wouldn't
right.
really know what you're looking at. I mean, these could be drum, these could be weeds, these could be whatever. Side imaging tells you that in such a short span of time, and especially with how good it is nowadays. It just helps with the learning curve a lot more, especially,
Sure.
for me. I mean, going to these places down south, like me being from Wisconsin, going to the first time per se to, a place that I had never been to, like Lake Murray or, somewhere else, giant bodies of water, even Lake Ontario, the first time I went there, the St. Lawrence River, just having that equipment to be able to break down a body of water in a decently amount of time, because let's face it, I don't have, 2, 3, 4 months to break down a place to fish a tournament on it. So, yeah.
We got a question, and then I want to get back to that a little bit. We got a question here from Nathan Riley. It said, if you get a chance, Nathan, of course I'm going to have a chance. It's my show. I'm going to ask him. Ask Jay what lake he's most excited about on the elite schedule this upcoming year. So can you answer his question?
Yeah. So the elite schedule came out not too long ago. If I had to go with one, I'm probably going to go with Lake Champlain, actually.
Oh,
I really like that place from this last year. I did well there. I feel like I can expand on, what I did there. It was my first time ever there, so I loved it. And then, but also another sleeper place, if I had to pick one as my favorite for next year, a place down south would have to be Smith Lake. We're going there in late June. I've actually done well on Smith before. It's actually one of the places that I did well to qualify for the Elite Series. I've been there a handful of times, and I like catching those big spotted bass and going up shallow for largemouth too. So I feel like Smith Lake's kind of similar to like an inland lake we have up north. It's clear.
Mm-hmm.
We just don't have the spotted bass.
Right. So that more natural type of setting, or more natural lake, is what you feel more comfortable with, right?
For sure.
Let me. One of the things I wanted to ask you was, and I'm sure it's probably going away a little bit now, especially with your success. But were there times, or are there still times, sometimes you get to a body of water and it's a little intimidating? And so, okay, and that's a good, honest answer. So what the question that I want to follow up and ask you with that is, when you are intimidated, or when you have been intimidated, and I think this will help viewers and listeners out there, what is something you do like to calm yourself down? Because a big body of water can be intimidating. There's absolutely no doubt about it. And so what are the basics that you go back to and go, all right, Jay, keep your head on your shoulders. Here's the first thing I'm going to start to maybe unlock the potential that you could have later on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. So the first thing I always do when I go to a place, and To be honest with you, I get intimidated a lot. It may not look like it, but going to a big place like that, like this next year, we're going to Toledo Bend. I've been there one other time, but I was young in my younger days when I went down there as a co-angler. I mean, place is huge. We're going there, early time of the year. What am I going to do when, day one of practice doesn't really go as planned? Right. I'm not catching a lot of fish. I don't really know what stage the fish are in or what area I'm going to target. It's pretty much when I'm just going to go back to what I know best. And it's how I grew up fishing. I grew up on the Wisconsin River. I grew up flipping a jig, looking at structure on the bank.
There you go.
Basically letting the bank or letting, pieces of structure that are visual to me tell me what the fish are doing firsthand. Now, obviously, that's not going to work all the time. I mean, right. It could be December, it could be January, all the fish could be deep. But based on the conditions that I'm faced, if I ever have the chance to, just go back to my roots and fish, how I love to fish, like river fishing style with a jig, with a swim jig, not necessarily beating the bank, but doing things that are a little bit, under the radar. Maybe it's a piece of wood that's off of a point that you can't see with your eyes, but you can see with your electronics. Just doing something a little bit different, but still in my comfort zone that I like to do back home is generally what I'll go to if I'm struggling. Or on a place that I've never been and, it's super intimidating, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I just like to go back to what I love doing. And, that's how I grew up fishing at home.
You mentioned swim jig, and that's one of my favorite baits to throw, especially when I go north. The more we have reeds and the more we have grass lines and things like that. But even early in season, cold water, I like throwing the swim jig a little bit. What are some of the sizes of swim jigs that you like? And what are some of your favorite trailers? I like a twin tail a lot, a twin tail on the back of a trailer, but are there times when you choose different trailers, different sizes? What is one of your setups where you go, you know what? I know how I'm going to look for stuff. I know what I'm going to be looking around. This is a swim jig I'm going to pick up.
Yeah, 2 swim jig sizes. I usually only use 2, a quarter and a 3/8.
Okay, that's what I use.
I'll let the current or the wind depict on how I'm going to swim that jig. Or how deep in the water column I'm fishing it. But trailer wise goes, a Strike King Menace trailer is my favorite trailer for a swim jig. You can either rig it horizontal or vertical.
Yep.
So, based on, if the fish are coming up from underneath it, if you're fishing super shallow, I'll fish it horizontal. If they're coming at it from the side and you're fishing it in a little deeper water, that's generally when I'll go with the vertical because they can see it better from the side. So that's kind of how I'll depict from the 2. But honestly, I'm either throwing the Menace or I'm throwing a Rage Swimmer on the back, which is basically just a paddle tail swim bait.
Right.
I don't usually go too crazy with different plastics. I am kind of a person that just keeps it simple. I don't get too crazy with colors and this and that and blah, blah, blah. It kind of goes back to the whole river fishing thing, like either black and blue, green pumpkin.
Big pumpkin.
two different sizes of trailer or 2 different styles of trailers. If they don't bite that, then I'm probably not going to catch anything.
Well, I'll tell you what, you and I would get along good in the boat together because if you ran out of green pumpkin, I'd have some for you.
Yeah.
And the same with black and blue. They're just, I have some other colors that I like. And sometimes in cold water, I get some really bright colors for smallmouth. Right. But otherwise than that, yeah, you know what you have confidence in. I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to take a little bit of a break right here. And we come back and we'll get a little bit, I want to talk to you a little bit more about smallmouth fishing and things like that in the St. Lawrence and just all the fun, great stuff that's been going your way. So we'll be back in a couple minutes.
Sounds good.
Located in Springfield, Illinois' largest selection of sports and sportswear, hunting, fishing, specialty shops and services, a 65-foot Ferris wheel, 16,000-gallon saltwater aquarium, and industry-leading knowledgeable employees. You don't take chances at Shields, ever. Go to shields.com. At Lure Parts Online, we have everything you need to make your own lures, pour soft plastics, tie your own flies, build your own rods, and more. Easy ordering ensures you get your products quickly. You can build it all with Lure Parts Online. Achieving affordable innovation through novel concepts and in-house ingenious designs. Cast King cost-effective e-commerce practices directly market to consumers, cutting costs by 30% or more on average. Affordable innovation, superior quality. CastKing.com. Mudhole is your number one resource for custom fishing rods. Mudhole is the world's largest supplier of rod building, tackle crafting supplies, and instruction. They have the best components and brands you trust. MHX, CRB, Fuji, Lamiglass, Sage, American Tackle, Pacific Bay, and more. It's easy to build your next custom fishing rod at mudhole.com. Believing quality is measured by lifespan and harnessing their unique chemistry and engineering know-how. Dakota Lithium lasts 4 times longer, powering your passion with an 11-year warranty. Find out more at dakotalithium.com. There we go. Come here. Get in here. Yeah. Nice fish right there. Hi, I'm Jim Crowley. Make sure you catch my show, Jim Crowley Outdoors, Monday to Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time and 4 p.m. Central Standard Time, exclusively on Wired to Fish TV. Look for Jim Crowley Outdoors on Wired to Fish TV on free ad-supported streaming TV, including Plex, that can be downloaded in the App Store at Apple TV, Roku, Samsung, and others. We are back with BASS Elite Pro Jay Przekurat. And Jay, one of the things I wanted to get into is 2022, you're Rookie of the Year. So you're on the tournament trail. Everything around you, all the guys have you watched, forever or seen forever. Everybody's around there. How do you not spin out? I'm with all those guys around you. I remember when I was fishing tournaments and there were guys, that you would just know these guys were good. These guys were better, than good. And so what did you do at first? Because at first we go back to that intimidating thing and it had to be a little bit. And then you're like, hey, I'm just here to fish. What was your process going through that?
Well, yeah, obviously you try and eliminate that as much as you can, but in reality, this has been my dream since I could, remember it, 8, 9, 10 years old. So I can remember the first tournament. It was on the St. Johns River. My Elite Series debut is what you'd call it. Mm-hmm. And I don't think I slept, an hour and a half, maybe the night before the tournament. It was a crazy feeling. It was something that I've never felt before like that. Similar to kind of when I was fishing the Opens, when I had the chance to qualify, I was really nervous then, but this took it up to a whole new level. I really don't even know why. It's the first tournament of the year. Obviously, there's going to be some jitters, but the jitters were pretty real. And it really hits you when you pull up to your first spot. There's nobody there. You start fishing it. You don't catch anything. And then you're going to go move to your second spot. And then when you get up to your second spot, you realize Mike Iaconelli is fishing your second spot. And you're like, well, all right, let's go to the third spot. So then you're kind of just like rolling through the day. You're like, okay, that just happened. Like, hopefully I can, catch a couple fish to get the day going. It's generally for me, it's the first hour of the day where I'm pretty, jittery, worked up, especially obviously the first tournament. But once I catch the first fish and kind of get going, then everything kind of escapes my head until I come into the weigh-in. And then obviously I see everybody again.
And I'm sure that's probably getting a little bit easier for you now, especially let me take you back to last tournament of the year in 2022. You had the idea, you were running for Rookie of the Year. There was, and it. Now, compared to the first tournament, did you sleep very good going to the last tournament, or was that another one where you're like, God, I can't wait this is over so I can get some sleep?
No, I slept a lot better for the last tournament, especially because that was also after I won the St. Lawrence River. So I felt like a lot of pressure was taking off of me, kind of knowing that I could compete with these other anglers, basically, because that was kind of what was going through my head earlier in the year. I knew I could compete with the guys. I had cashed a couple checks, but I didn't know if I'd ever have a chance to, win. I didn't know, I know there's been anglers that have been trying to win, for, ever. A long time. Yeah. And I didn't know if it was possible in the first couple of years, and somehow, some way it ended up happening.
Yeah, it was incredible to see, especially with that weight. And St. Lawrence is, for people who don't know, is obviously known for big and a lot of smallmouth. And so that was your wheelhouse to a certain extent. And then, yeah, there's probably stuff, there's stuff out there where you're like, yeah, another huge, massive body of water. So what I want to know on that one, again, it's kind of what I asked you before. Did you just start with basics that you knew, and then you were like, holy cow, you expanded on something, you go, my goodness, this is going to work here?
Yeah, so kind of how it all happened out there at the St. Lawrence was, so I fish Sturgeon Bay a lot. It's a place that's close to home.
Sure.
It's a Great Lakes body of water, Lake Michigan.
Yep.
Big smallmouth. Now, Sturgeon Bay, in my opinion, ranks as one of the top smallmouth places, but it's not good necessarily all year round for giants. So when I got to the St. Lawrence River, I knew it was going to fish similar. I didn't know how similar it was going to fish. And, based on time of the year, we were there in July. So it was a little bit later. I fish Sturgeon Bay generally in May and June. Fish are up shallow. Now, luck would have it, the fish that I was fishing for on the St. Lawrence River were a little bit shallower that time of the year in July. So they weren't out to their summer haunts yet. So I feel like that played a big factor in how I won, just because I do like to fish for shallower smallmouth, and that's kind of how I grew up fishing, not knowing, all those deep places that those smallmouth go to in the summertime, because they always go to the same areas.
Yep.
Knowing that is hard to know, especially, as your first time there. So I found an area on the St. Lawrence. I believe it was the second day of practice, and it was pretty windy out there. I mean, if anybody knows the Great Lakes, it gets pretty rough. You don't have a lot of time to find fish, especially when you have a limited amount of practice and the weather's not great. Luckily enough, I found this area. It was about 40 miles from the takeoff. And when I found this area, it was pretty windy. I caught a couple fish, and then I started dissecting it a little bit more. I noticed there was a lot of bait fish in the water, and I instantly caught one that was about 5.5 pounds underneath the trolling motor.
Nice.
I hit spot lock. I was like, oh, it's a good fish, but I'm a long ways away from the takeoff. I got to kind of see what's going on here. And after that first cast, I ended up, I believe, marking, a bunch more fish. And I took 4 more casts at 4 more fish, and they all ended up being over 5 pounds. 5 fish for 25 pounds.
Oh, man.
In practice. Now, you never know what's going to happen on the first tournament. Obviously, I'm going to start at this spot.
Obviously, yeah.
Great. So, I'm driving to the spot, and I get all the way there, set down 40 miles from the takeoff, and there's nobody around me. There's not a guy within, a couple miles of me. I could see maybe one in the distance, and I'm like, oh, this is either good or bad, because, usually when you're not fishing around people or smallmouth, sometimes it can be kind of iffy, but we were on a big lake, so I had high hopes for it. And roll up to the first waypoint I had where the fish were. Now, mind you, the wind was blowing in on this spot, so that's probably why they were there. And they were not there. I was in the area for 5 or 10 or 15 minutes. Caught a couple little guys, a couple little 2-pounders, and I happened to look to my right. And at the same time, I looked to my right for whatever reason it was. I'm not sure what it was. Maybe I heard a boat in the distance or something. A fish broke the surface on the water. Like, I'd say it was like 30 or 40 yards from me. So it was a good little ways. I was fishing like the 10 to 12 foot zone, and this fish broke, out in like 20 foot of water. So I turned over there with my electronics, and lo and behold, where that fish had jumped, they were all smallmouth bass. And they were from like 20 feet down all the way to like 6 feet below the surface.
What were they holding on? Were they holding on anything, or did it just relating to bait fish?
So there was a lot of bait in the area.
Okay.
They were on a rock pile, but the rock pile wasn't anything like super specific. It wasn't like an isolated pile. It wasn't like they were on just like a little point, but there was nothing super specific about it. The rocks weren't really bigger or anything like that. I don't know why they were there. My biggest thing would be the bait fish, but yeah, I threw my drop shot out. The half shell got like 6 feet down in the water column, and a 5-pounder already had it. And as soon as I caught the first 5-pounder, it was the same. I knew it was the same school of fish that I had found. They just had moved a little deeper. And my next 4 drops underneath the trolling motor on my scale, when I got back up, I had just under 27 pounds.
Now, dude, come on. You got to be shaking. You got to be shaking.
Yeah. So
there's no way you can't be.
No, mind you, at this time, I also didn't have a marshal in the boat. So it was just me. First day of the tournament. I had my camera running in the back, but I had nobody else with me. And obviously, yeah, I mean, I'm shaking. I mean, I just caught, almost 27 pounds in 30 minutes. It's 8:30 in the morning. I just pulled up to my spot and, thoughts are starting to go through my head. Like, do I sit here and catch these? I'm like, no, you idiot. You can't sit here and catch these. It's a 4-day tournament.
Yeah.
So I did end up hitting one other little spot on the way back. But honestly, I went back into the river and sat there for 6 hours and waited for the weigh-in.
I was going to ask you, because I've done that before on a tournament on a much smaller scale where you had a good day and you're like, I just want to go get close to the weigh-in.
That was my biggest fear.
Yeah, I just want to go get close. And that is awesome. Now, one of the things I was going to ask you, you led into that perfectly. You were talking about that half shell that you were throwing. When you find a smallmouth like that, and obviously that was relying on your instincts. You saw something. That's why your emotions and your instincts are still so important, because if you weren't paying attention, you might never have saw that fish. It might have taken you a lot longer to find that school, if ever. Right.
Oh, for sure.
And so what are some of your baits for smallmouth? We were talking before we went on air. I love them like you do. And I'm always curious to pick another guy who loves chasing brownfish. What was that time of year? What's on your deck? What do you, besides the drop shot, what else are you going? These are the ones that I'm going to pick them off with.
Honestly, I had 2 baits on the deck going into the tournament. I had a hair jig, a marabou hair jig. Yep. In like an 1/8 ounce, 3/32, so I could reel it a little faster and get it a little deeper. And then I did have a couple different variations of drop shots, not necessarily bait wise. I did have a couple different color half shells on. I mainly just stuck with the half shell because they were biting so good, and you didn't have to get too crazy with other baits like a minnow presentation, like a Z2. Sure. Mainly just stuck to that one bait, but I would switch up colors every once in a while. Sure. I would. They make one called the green pumpkin purple. It has a little bit of purple flake in it. I felt like when the sun was out, that helped a little bit for some reason, especially on the little bit shallower ones I was catching on my other primary spot. And regular green pumpkin that didn't have the flake when it was cloudy out. I don't know what it was about not having the flake when it was cloudy out. I felt like it did make a difference just because the water was so clear. So basically only those 2 colors. And then I would change up my weight sizes on my drop shot. So 1/4 ounce weight, almost 100% of the time. But if the fish were a little bit deeper and it got a little bit windier, I'd step up to the 3/8. Okay. I would only use the 1/4, especially in like 20, 22 feet of water, is because these fish would get it on the fall. And I didn't want that bait, just shooting past them and not giving them that chance to get it on the fall, because sometimes when that drop shot got to the bottom, they would shy away from it at times, especially, after you've thrown at them, 50, 60 times in a day. And especially as the tournament went on, obviously, as most people saw, that school of fish got educated pretty quick. I mean, that water's so clear. They know what's going on.
And I've always felt that smallmouth, to a certain point, their instincts seem to be a little bit more honed than largemouth on certain things, especially in really, really clear water. Now, I'm not saying that largemouth don't, but smallmouth in a school, and I know you've seen this too, you hook one, and part of that school is going to swim with him sometimes and pull them off, and then it's just going to dissect.
Then it's over,
and then it gets brutal. So it was interesting to you to say, and I'm glad that people are hearing this, is that, and I know people do this all the time, but it's nice to hear you say it, that sometimes, especially with smallmouth, it can take a brighter color, or it can take just flat out natural to light that school back up again. It can be the exact same bait. You just change colors on them. I know in real cold water, I like throwing brighter colors, but sometimes when they knock down to that, go into a natural color, and that school just picks right back up again. Have you experienced the same thing?
Yeah, that's the one and only thing I'll do with smallmouth. I don't change up the baits because everybody knows the staples for smallmouth, right? I mean, swim bait, hair jig, tube, Ned rig, drop shot. I mean, you can't change those baits, right?
Right.
But the only thing you can change is the colors, and that's, where fishing with smallmouth, I feel like, is huge, because you can go to a siren color,
Right.
chartreuse,
Yeah, for sure.
straight chartreuse. You wouldn't think, the world of it. You're like, why am I throwing this thing into the water right now?
But it works.
And it works. And you're like, how does that even, you're just mind blown by it. But stuff like that.
My favorite jerk bait of all time for smallmouth is a hot pink X-Wrap. But that's what I've caught my biggest ones on, and I've had them fighting over it. It's when I fish cold water, anything below 55 degrees, the one rod that will always be on the deck first is that size 10 hot pink X-Wrap. Yeah. Now I will switch to, but that is just one that is, I don't know if they're, and I've had people ask questions, you're probably going to get that too. Why do you choose that color? After all this time, sometimes I don't know. I don't know why they like it. I just know they do. I'm not going to argue with them. I'm not going to try to figure it out. I just know when that bait hits the water, I've got so much confidence in it. And I'm sure you're probably the same way with some of your drop shot baits. And even that hair jig's another one. That's always on my boat. Because and especially you growing up in Wisconsin and on the river, I bet you've seen that. There are other times when you're throwing that hair jig, they won't hit anything else. Have you come across that as well? That hair jig is it's deadly.
Yeah. Another bait too that has been catching storm recently, and I believe it'll be a bait that is going to win a lot of tournaments here, especially with, everything going on with forward facing sonar, is what people call moping, or the Demiki rig. Yeah. Specifically with the Baby Z2, I've seen it. Now this is fishing for smallmouth, again, where you can go to, say you're throwing a color called pearl, basically just a white color, and you switch over to a color called blue glimmer. It's basically a white, but it's more translucent. That can make the biggest difference in the world to a smallmouth that's feeding on, 2-inch herring in 40 feet of water. So just little things like that can trigger a fish to bite that never would have bit before, if you were throwing straight white per se.
Now one of the other baits coming out, and I don't know if you've thrown it, is like a hover jig, or it's kind of like a glide bait where it's a really light head, and you put just like a little minnow bait in the back. And I was doing a lot of that this year, actually, of a guy who showed me. And it was amazing the size of the fish that would hit that little tiny glide. But when they've seen everything else, now have you experienced, or have you tried those hover rigs at all, or I call them switch and glide baits, just because you can do different things with them? Have you experimented with those?
No, I haven't. I'm starting to get more into like I said before, I'm a really standard guy, so I don't really get away from the standard jig head and Baby Z2. So I'm starting to kind of expand my realm and get a little bit outside. But to your point, no, I haven't tried. I think it's what they call hover strolling now.
Yeah.
I haven't tried actually hover strolling, I guess. But I have thrown a fair share of jig wraps for bass.
Oh, yeah.
Stuff like that, stuff that's, kind of under the radar, but works at certain times of the year, for fish that are, suspended offshore.
Now we got a question. I think you answered it, but Pat Bowden just came in and said, do you adjust the size of the drop shot bait? Do you adjust the bait, or you adjust the weight more than anything, don't you?
Yeah, I adjust the weight more than anything. I never really adjust the size of the bait ever. Okay. Usually it's always somewhere around that 3-inch range, maybe a little bigger, a little smaller. Nothing usually too long on a drop shot.
Well, one of the things I do want to cover before we let you go is, and people probably figure we're going to ask you about it anyway, but you're wearing Dakota Lithium sweatshirt there. I use Dakota Lithium batteries, and I've told people why I started using them, and one of the reasons is because I don't worry about power anymore. And the most I've ever went is 19 straight hours, and I didn't have to charge it, but I did, and that was over 2.5 days of fishing. You're faced with a lot more extreme situations and circumstances than I put myself in, because you fish more of the Great Lakes a lot. How is switching over to lithium, specifically Dakota Lithium, it's got to give you more confidence in your power, but it's also probably the way your boat is rigged. How has that helped you? Because lithium is a big thing, and I am convinced the more people, when they go to it, you don't have those power issues anymore. You don't worry about it.
Oh yeah. So I have a couple. I mean, I have many specific examples of the battery deal. So 2 years ago, I didn't even have a 21-foot bass boat. I actually just had like a little 18-foot bass boat. Never had lithiums before. This is prior to me fishing the Elite Series. My first year fishing the Elite Series is when I got Dakota lithiums, and when I started using lithiums and started to realize the difference. And it was when we got to specific tournaments where you can never go back to anything else. Fishing Champlain with lithium batteries, that's the only answer to it. I mean, we're out there 15 hours during the summer, chasing these fish around in 30, 40, 50, 60 feet of water, trolling motor on 80 to 100 all day long in practice. When you get off the water, you know, your batteries aren't even dead.
Right.
You go to charge them, you wake up in the morning, no worries. Go to the tournament, do the same exact thing day in and day out, 4 days in a row. You know, we're talking, I don't know how many hours that is on the trolling motor, chasing these fish around. You know, going back just 2 years ago with the batteries I had, it'd be impossible to do that. You wouldn't be able to do that. I mean, you'd be dead in the water by, you know, 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So being able to do that is basically the main reason why I did well at Champlain. And there's many other tournaments too. I mean, you know, places where, you know, you're on the bank looking for sight fish, looking for bedding fish all day long in practice. Yeah, I mean, it's been the biggest advantage I've had in my boat the last 2 years fishing the Elite Series, trying to be competitive with these guys, you know, now that they all have these awesome products.
Now, because I know some trolling motors are set up the same, like I have two 12-volt Dakota lithiums for my trolling motor. I have a separate battery just for my electronics. This year I'm going over to a lithium starting battery as well. Minus the great thing that they're half the weight. And I always think that's funny because people go, well, they're half the weight. Well, good. Then I just filled the rest up with plastics and make that and so we have the same, but you have more room and everything. Do you set up? Is that how you set up your batteries? Is like two just for the trolling motor and then one for electronics, or how do you like to do it?
Yeah, so I set up this last year. I used for my trolling motor, I had the 12-volt 135 amps. Yep. 3 of those in a series, 4 obviously with the starter too. So I had 4 batteries essentially for my trolling motor, 3 of them specifically for my trolling motor without my starting battery, the 12 volts. And then I had 1 extra 12-volt 135 that ran my live scope and 2 transducers at the bottom of my boat.
Wow.
So that basically, you know, covered my electronics portions that I didn't have to worry about, you know, taking that out on my starting battery. You know, whether, you know, I know a lot of people like to put their graphs on standby when they're not using them, things like that. But there's times where you forget, you know, your live wells are running all day, your lights are on. There's a lot of things that go into it. So I felt like having that, you know, extra safety blanket of having that, you know, extra 12-volt there, which held up great all year. Didn't have to fuss with it whatsoever. You know, ran my live scopes, ran my 2 graphs up front flawlessly, and just took the headache out of, you know, having to worry about your starter going dead.
Yeah, for sure. And that makes it so much easier. I tell people a story about, you know, just sitting in current all day. So even if we're up at La Crosse and some of the places that you're faced with, the current's even stronger, and keeping it on spot lock that whole time and going back in an hour and a half, I charge at the end of the night, or 2 hours, and my batteries are all charged up. Yeah. But I didn't have any lack of power the entire day. Got a question for you here from Mr. Mark Dyer. He said, Jay, do you remember your first fish or first bass that triggered this amazing career path you're on? And if you weren't fishing for bass and you could choose another species for fun, here we go. What would you target?
All right. So first fish that triggered this career for me, I can remember it like it was yesterday. It was my first ever tournament with my dad. We were fishing the Wisconsin River at home. This tournament was a 3 bass, 3 walleye tournament. So it was kind of a mixture deal. We started off in the morning going for bass, because on our section of the river, bass are going to weigh more because we have a slot limit on walleyes.
There you go.
So we started fishing for bass, and lo and behold, my dad hooked into a 6-pound, I believe, 4-ounce largemouth on our local river, and it was the biggest.
That's a big river bass.
Yeah, the biggest bass anyone's ever seen out of there in years. And I got to net it and everything, and put it in the live well. I don't remember it personally
Very
in my
cool.
mind, but my
Very
dad
cool.
was like, apparently I was just screaming. I was like, this is going to be big bass of the tournament and blah,
Sure.
blah, blah. So it was the first fish of the day. So that was my best moment. Fish I can remember wise. But let's see. The other question was a fish I would like to fish for a different species. That's a good question. Not walleyes. I just don't jive well with walleyes. I do like fishing for them occasionally, but I'd have to say crappies.
Okay.
I enjoy fishing for crappies, especially ice fishing, like first ice.
Oh, that's a ball.
Yeah, I really love fishing for crappies. First ice, or even in the boat. I like throwing bobbers. Crappies are fun. I like crappies.
Yeah, no, that's great, man. I sure appreciate you coming on. That you're a wealth of knowledge, and as far as I'm concerned, a shining star in this industry. I wish you nothing but continued success. It has been fun to watch. It was great to finally meet you via this and at least talk with you. Tell people where they can find out more. Follow you on social media. Anything you want to tell them, let them have it.
Yeah, so my two social platforms, Facebook and Instagram, both are just, my name, Jay Przekurat, and Jay Przekurat Fishing on Instagram, or on Facebook, sorry. And I also am starting a YouTube channel, Jay Przekurat Fishing. This past year, I actually filmed all 9 events of the Elite Series, and I have videos on every tournament that I fished this last year. And this upcoming year, I hopes to improve that a little bit and get some more videos out for everybody. And I'm also going to be covering the tournament scene again. So it should be a good year.
And just from the short amount of time we spend here, you have a very good knack of explaining what you do, and that's what people love to see. And you're very good at it. You've had a lot of success at it, and I hope you continue to do that, because knowledge out there. And just with up and coming anglers younger than you, that kind of knowledge out there, you pass on what you know, and our sport grows.
Right.
And I think you do a great job of that. Again, I want to thank you for your time. Looking forward to it. It'll probably be an ICAST, but looking forward to running into you. And I'm glad Dakota Lithium hooked you up with us, because it's been a real pleasure talking to you. I encourage everybody to go and check out Jay's stuff on social media. And thank you so much for spending your time with you. Welcome back on Slickfish Radio anytime. Looking forward to seeing how your year goes. Myself, along with everybody who's going to see that, I'm sure they'll be pulling for you. God bless you. Safe travels. Keep catching them, man. You're a good one. I appreciate you being on.
Thanks, Jim. Thank you for having me on here.
What a great guy. What a great guy. I love having these young anglers on here who are a shining light to this sport. This sport has meant the world to me. I've had such a great life because of it, and seeing young anglers like this who continue to go out there and promote great things and work so hard and have such a good work ethic. I have nothing but the utmost respect for him, and hope he continues to be a force to be reckoned with. And I'm sure he will be. He was raised the right way. And it's so cool to see that his dad and him have stuck together on that. And Jay, if you're still listening, just let you know, I'm not that big of a walleye fan either. Give me a jig and wrap, and I love catching them. Otherwise than that, I'm going after stuff too, but I appreciate the anglers who are so good with it. I do want to show you and share some stuff with you guys tonight. I do want to tell you again, I want to thank our friends at Shields Lure Parts Online. I do have some discount codes for you. Obviously, as you see, there's new backgrounds, some new partners that we have here. So I have some great new discount codes for everybody. Now, Jay was talking about Dakota Lithium. It's what I use as well, too. I've had some of you tell me that you are on, you're on the border thinking about getting some the lithium batteries. As Jay said, especially what he has to face with, even when I am faced with conditions that aren't as severe as some of his are, but I've noticed a noticeable difference. I've talked about this for the last couple of years. 11-year warranty on a battery, and you have 4 times the power and half the charging time. You don't have to worry about your equipment anymore. You want to find out more, to go to dakotalithium.com. If you decide to get one, put in that code right there, Slickfish10. You get 10% off any lithium batteries or anything you want to get from Dakota Lithium. 10% when you're going for a lithium battery is a good deal. And I thank Dakota Lithium for offering for that. You have my word, you will be impressed with these batteries. I have been, and that's what I've been using for the last 2 years, ice fishing and open water. Impressive. Flat out impressive. Put in the code SlickFish10, you get 10% off there. Our friends at Lure Parts Online, a code for this month. Check out our new Bass Academy plastics line. I did show you our Little D's great drop shot. This is my #1 Ned rig bait. Some of you probably saw that on the show this past year. These are the ones infused with crunch. That scent will always be there. They do not let go of this. You want to find out more about our Bass Academy line, and more is coming. Watch my social media this week and next week. More is coming. For those of you who like to build your own lures, please, if you haven't liked this on Facebook or Instagram, please do. I am going to show you some stuff that is going to blow your mind that you can build yourself. Nobody has more components for anything that you want to build, including our new line of Bass Academy plastic. Go to Lure Parts Online. Put in the code this month, JC Outdoors 10G. You'll get 10% off your first order right there. Go to Lure Parts Online. Check it out. You'll be impressed. There's some really, really cool stuff, and we are coming out with more. How about this? Crunch infused skirts. So now your skirts all smell like that. How about a hybrid skirt that's going to have silicone and rubber in it where you can build your own? How about being able to see your lures underwater on the website before you purchase them? That's coming. You will see how stuff that you potentially build will look. Go to Lure Parts Online. You will be impressed what you will be able to build. Okay. Also, our friends at Cast King. I do want to show you this. I love these. This is the new Hyper Seal tackle box from Cast King. Two sizes, 3600, 3700. Waterproof. Okay. Waterproof, and your lures will be rust proof. There is actually again inside there that will keep your lures from rusting. All the slots in here have air flowing through to help dry out your product. They will now be waterproof and completely sealed. Plus, you even have a spot on each box right there so you can write exactly what's on there. Go to castking.com. Reels, rods, everything, but check out those new Hyper Seal tackle boxes. The code right here will give you 20% off any and everything at Cast King. We have more people commenting on here. Mark Dyer, that's exciting. Adam, okay, haven't got your power box? We'll check on it, Adam. It takes 2 or 3 weeks for it to come, and so we'll check on it, but I know it's probably on the way, Adam, so it's coming. All right, Lee Kerr, he said sweet. All right, so we're good. Remember right now, Dakota Lithium is really backed up. Adam, sorry you haven't got it, but I'm sure it's on the way, but I'll check on it. But I know you got a power box that is coming your way. Also want to thank our friends at Mudhole. You will be seeing some more things from Mudhole coming up. We're going to be doing some rod builds this year as well. A lot of exciting stuff that is going to be coming up from them as well. Also, to let you know, you're watching us now on Facebook, and some of you watching us live on YouTube. You know you can see us on Roku. You can see us on Fire TV, Amazon Music, iTunes, and Spotify. Starting in January, or starting next month, I think, actually, Wired to Fish TV is now going to be on the Sling network as well. So now there are 10 different stations that Wired to Fish TV is on. Slickfish Radio is also being added to Wired to Fish TV. So you can watch both my shows starting next month on Wired to Fish TV as well. Catch them live here, but if you want to see repeats and things like that, you can go to all the networks, including Plex, which is free. Then you have Sling, Fubo, and more, where you'll be able to see Jim Crowley Outdoors as well as Slickfish Radio. So a lot more platforms. Part of the reason that's happening is because of all of you who watch the show. Our audience is growing, and that reflected that. And now we're moving this show as well as here on Facebook and YouTube and Roku and Fire TV. We're going to be on Wired to Fish TV as well. I thank all of you for all of that. We got some more comments coming in here. Yep, Cast King has a great new rod holder. Yes, Lee, they do. A bunch of new products from Cast King. So again, I want to thank our friends at Shields, Lure Parts Online, Cast King, Mudhole, and Dakota Lithium for bringing you all Slickfish Radio. Thank all of you. Thank Jay Przekurat for being on here tonight. Another great show. Always so much fun. Always fun joining you. If you have any questions or comments, I'll be on the page afterwards answering you. But as I always say, God bless all of you. Hey, do me a favor. Check out, if you haven't already, check out this. Check out Proverbs 3:5-6. Don't know what it is? Go check it out. Until next time, God bless you. I'm Jim Crowley. We will see you soon.